The rain hit Seoul like a punishment from the gods, turning the neon-lit streets into rivers of shattered light. Elena Kim's boots slammed against wet concrete as she sprinted through the Gangnam District subway maintenance tunnel, her breath tearing through her lungs like broken glass. Behind her, two figures in black tactical gear moved with the silent precision of predators who had done this 1,000 times before. Her titanium knee screamed with every impact, the old injury flaring white-hot, but she couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Not when she finally had proof. The USB drive in her jacket pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Elena ducked under a rusted pipe, her locks whipping across her face, and yanked out her phone. Her fingers trembled as she opened the live stream app. 12,000 subscribers. Not much. But enough witnesses to make them think twice about killing her in the dark. The red recording light blinked on. "If you're watching this," she gasped into the camera, her voice raw, "my name is Elena Kim. I run Truth Without Borders. And if I don't make it out of this tunnel tonight, it's because K-Imperial Biosolutions never stopped experimenting on people." She stumbled over a pile of debris, caught herself against the wall, kept running. 3 years ago they told me my mother died in a lab fire. Dr. Elena Kim. Trauma surgeon. Brilliant. Gone. Elena's voice cracked. "But I have footage. I have proof. She didn't die in that fire. She was erased. And I think..." A shadow moved at the edge of her phone screen. "I think I helped them do it." The feed cut to static. Elena shoved the phone back in her pocket and threw herself into a disused emergency stairwell, pressing her back against the cold concrete wall. Her heart hammered so loud she was certain they could hear it echoing through the tunnels. Footsteps. Measured. Patient. They weren't running anymore. They knew she was trapped. Elena closed her eyes and thought about how it had all started. Just 12 hours ago, she'd been sitting in her cramped Itaewon apartment, nursing a cold cup of coffee and editing footage for her latest exposé on pharmaceutical price gouging. Normal. Safe. Boring. Then the package arrived. No return address. No postmark. Just a padded envelope with her name written in faded marker. But it wasn't her name that made her hands shake when she picked it up. It was the word underneath. Seoul. Her childhood nickname. The name her mother whispered when she tucked her in at night. The name that died with Dr. Elena Kim in a fire that consumed an entire research wing of Seoul General Hospital. Nobody called her Seoul anymore. Nobody alive even knew that name. Elena had torn open the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside, a single USB drive, black and unmarked, and a scrap of paper with 5 words written in handwriting she didn't recognize. "You were there. Remember." She'd plugged the drive into her laptop before she could talk herself out of it. Before the rational part of her brain could remind her that mysterious USB drives were how journalists got hacked, tracked, or worse. The file was 17 seconds long. Grainy surveillance footage. A sterile white room. And in the center of the frame, sitting in front of a camera like she was recording a confession, was Dr. Elena Kim. Alive. Her mother's face was thinner than Elena remembered, her dark skin ashen under the fluorescent lights, her natural hair cropped close to her skull. But it was her. Those same warm brown eyes that had read Elena bedtime stories. Those same elegant hands that had taught her to braid hair and stitch wounds and fight for the truth. "Seoul," her mother said in the video, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you're seeing this, they haven't found you yet. Or maybe they have, and they let you find this because they want you to come looking." Elena had pressed pause. Her coffee cup shattered on the floor. She didn't remember dropping it. She pressed play. "They made you forget, Seoul. The procedure, the program, all of it. They told you there was an accident. They told you I died. But you saw it. You were there." Her mother leaned closer to the camera, her eyes wet with tears. "You have to remember. Before they..." The video cut to static. And then, for a single frame that burned itself into Elena's retinas, the footage showed something else. A teenage girl with Elena's face. Standing over a surgical table. Holding a scalpel dripping with blood. The girl was smiling. Elena had watched that 17 seconds 47 times. She'd run the footage through every enhancement tool she could find. She'd screenshotted the final frame and stared at it until her eyes burned and her head pounded and the migraine medication stopped working. That girl was her. She knew it in her bones, in the marrow of her being, in the place where truth lived underneath all the lies we tell ourselves to survive. But she had no memory of that night. No memory of that room. No memory of anything between her 16th birthday and waking up in a hospital bed 5 years ago with a shattered knee, a skull full of static, and a doctor telling her she was lucky to be alive after the accident. What accident? She'd asked that question 100 times. 1,000 times. The doctors smiled and changed the subject. The police reports were sealed. Her mother's death certificate listed the cause as smoke inhalation during laboratory fire, and the case was closed before Elena even regained consciousness. She'd spent 5 years trying to rebuild her life from the ashes of questions nobody would answer. 5 years building a YouTube channel dedicated to exposing the powerful people who thought they could bury the truth. 5 years pretending she was okay with not knowing who she really was. And now, hiding in a stairwell with killers hunting her through the dark, Elena finally understood why they'd worked so hard to make her forget. She wasn't just a witness. She was evidence. The footsteps stopped. Elena held her breath. "Miss Kim." The voice was calm, almost pleasant. "We know you're in there. We know you have the drive. And we know you've already seen what's on it." Elena pressed herself deeper into the shadows. "I want you to understand something," the man continued. "We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. What you saw on that footage, it's not what you think. Your mother was a brilliant woman, but she was also very sick. The things she said, the accusations she made, they were the product of a deteriorating mind." Elena's jaw clenched. Her mother had been the sharpest person she'd ever known. The idea that Elena Kim had lost her mind was laughable. Insulting. "If you come with us now, we can explain everything. We can help you understand what really happened that night. We can even help you remember." Pause. "Don't you want to remember, Seoul? That name. That name that shouldn't exist anymore. That name that died in a fire with everything else she'd ever loved." Elena's hand closed around a chunk of broken concrete. "I remember enough," she said, stepping out of the shadows and hurling the concrete at the nearest tactical light. The tunnel plunged into darkness. Elena ran. "Now, before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever felt like pieces of your past don't quite fit together, if you've ever looked in the mirror and seen a stranger staring back, hit that subscribe button right now. Because Elena's story isn't just about memory and conspiracy. It's about what happens when the person you thought you were turns out to be a lie. And trust me, you're going to want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes." Elena burst out of an emergency exit and into the rain-soaked streets of Gangnam. The neon lights turned the world into a fever dream of pink and blue and violent green. Luxury cars hissed past on wet asphalt. Drunk businessmen stumbled out of hostess bars. Nobody looked twice at the woman with blood on her knee and terror in her eyes. That was Seoul. That was anywhere, really. People saw what they wanted to see. They believed what was easy to believe. Elena ducked into an alley and pulled out her phone. The live stream had disconnected, but the comments were already flooding in. "What just happened? Bunji, is she okay? This has to be fake, right? No way this is real. K-Imperial? Aren't they that wellness company? They make vitamins, lol." Elena's hands were shaking too hard to type a response. She needed to get somewhere safe. She needed to figure out her next move. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "If you want answers, come to the address below. Alone. You have 1 hour." Attached was a GPS pin for a location in the old industrial district. The kind of place where bodies disappeared and questions got answered with violence. Elena should have deleted the message. Should have gone to the police. Should have done anything except what she did next. But the police hadn't helped her 5 years ago. They'd smiled and stamped her mother's file closed and told her to focus on recovery. And the journalists she'd reached out to, the investigators, the people who were supposed to care about truth, they'd all gone quiet eventually. Some of them stopped returning her calls. Some of them left the country. One of them drove his car off a bridge 3 weeks after Elena showed him a photo of her mother's lab. Coincidence, the police said. Elena didn't believe in coincidence anymore. She took a taxi to the edge of the industrial district and walked the rest of the way, her titanium knee clicking with every step. The rain had softened to a mist that clung to her skin like a second layer of grief. Abandoned warehouses loomed on either side of her, their broken windows staring down like empty eye sockets. The address led her to a nondescript building with a rusted metal door. Elena hesitated, then knocked. The door swung open before her fist finished falling. A man stood in the doorway. Tall. Korean. Maybe mid-30s, with the kind of military bearing that never quite faded. A scar ran from his left eyebrow to his jawline, pale against brown skin. His eyes were the coldest Elena had ever seen. "You're either very brave or very stupid," he said. "I've been called both." The hint of a smile. "I'm Kai. I knew your mother." Elena's heart stuttered. "You knew her before? Before the fire? After the fire? During the parts they made you forget?" He stepped aside. "Come in. We don't have much time." The inside of the warehouse was nothing like the outside. State-of-the-art computers lined the walls. Screens displayed surveillance feeds from locations across Seoul. A cot in the corner suggested someone lived here, but the space felt less like a home and more like a command center for someone fighting a war nobody else knew about. "Who are you?" Elena demanded. "And don't give me some mysterious freedom fighter nonsense. I've been lied to enough." Kai pulled up a chair and sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. "I was K-Imperial security for 6 years. Head of protection for their special projects division. I know where the bodies are buried because I helped bury some of them. And now you're what, reformed? Seeking redemption. Now I'm a dead man walking who made a promise to someone I loved." Kai's jaw tightened. "Your mother saved my life, Elena. Not medically, though she did that too. She showed me what K-Imperial was really doing. What Project Lotus was designed to do." Elena leaned forward. "Project Lotus. That phrase keeps appearing in my research. What is it?" "It's why you don't remember the 5 years they stole from you. It's why your mother had to die, or at least why they needed the world to think she did." Kai turned to one of the screens and pulled up a file. Project Lotus was K-Imperial's crown jewel. Funded through their Biotech division, hidden behind shell companies and government contracts. On paper, it was research into treating PTSD and traumatic memory disorders. And in reality? In reality, it was a program to weaponize memory itself. They figured out how to erase specific memories, implant false ones, even rewrite a person's entire identity without them ever knowing. Kai's eyes met hers. They didn't just want to treat trauma, Elena. They wanted to create perfectly loyal assets. Politicians who would vote the way they were told because they genuinely believed it was their own idea. Scientists who would bury inconvenient research because they'd been programmed to think it was flawed. Journalists who would stop investigating. Elena's voice was hollow. Journalists who would stop investigating and never understand why. Your mother was one of the lead surgeons. She developed the neural implantation techniques. She thought she was helping people. Trauma victims, soldiers with PTSD, children who'd witnessed unspeakable things. By the time she realized what K-Imperial was really using her work for, she was in too deep to walk away. So she tried to shut it down. She tried to expose it. Gathered evidence, made copies of files, recorded testimonies from patients who'd been subjected to the program without consent. Kai pulled up another file. And she wasn't alone. The image on screen made Elena's legs buckle. It was her. But not her. A younger version, maybe 17 or 18, wearing a white lab coat and standing in front of a surgical suite. The badge on her coat read, Elena Kim, Junior Technician. "No," Elena whispered. "No, that's not, I was never." "You were brilliant," Kai said quietly. "Even more gifted than your mother. K-Imperial recruited you when you were 16. You didn't just work on Project Lotus, Elena. You were their star. You could implant memories with a precision nobody else could match. They called you the ghost because your work was invisible. Seamless. The subjects never knew their minds had been altered." Elena shook her head violently. "That's impossible. I would remember. I would know. That's the whole point." Kai's voice was gentle, but his words cut like scalpels. "When your mother tried to expose the program, you were supposed to stop her. That was your assignment. Neutralize the threat. But something went wrong." "What?" "You." Kai turned the screen to show another file, this one a medical report. "You turned on them, Elena. You tried to destroy the program from the inside. You sabotaged experiments, corrupted data, helped subjects escape before their programming was complete. And when K-Imperial realized what you'd done, they erased me." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "They used their own technology on me. Your mother set the fire to cover your escape. She sacrificed everything, her reputation, her freedom, her identity, to give you a chance at a real life. A life where you didn't have to remember what they'd made you do." Elena thought about the 5 years of blank space in her memory. The titanium knee that ached when it rained. The migraines that came without warning and left her curled in a ball, whimpering in the dark. The nightmares about white rooms and crying children and blood on her hands. "The video," she said slowly. "The final frame. That was me over that surgical table. I was. We don't know what happened in that room. The footage was corrupted, possibly intentionally. All we know is that something went wrong during one of the procedures. Something your mother never forgave herself for. Why are you telling me this now? Why after all these years?" Kai was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something Elena recognized. Grief. The kind that never fully healed. "Because your brother is still alive." The world stopped. Elena had no brother. She'd been an only child. Her father had left before she was born, and her mother had never remarried. She had no siblings, no cousins, no family at all except June, she breathed, and the name tasted like something she'd forgotten she'd lost. The boy in the blue room. I dream about him sometimes. A little boy with my mother's eyes calling me. Seoul. Kai nodded. Junho Kim. Your mother's son. Your half-brother. He was born during your time at K-Imperial, and he became their most valuable subject. His neural patterns were unique. Pure in a way that made him the perfect blank slate. K-Imperial believed they could use him as a template. Implant any identity, any skill set, any loyalty structure. They could create the perfect asset. The perfect weapon. Kai's hands clenched into fists. The perfect puppet. And my mother tried to save him too. That's why she set the fire. That's why she sacrificed her identity. And that's why, Kai stopped, his jaw working. That's why I've spent the last 3 years trying to find him. He's your son. It wasn't a question. He's all I have left of her. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Where is he? Elena asked. K-Imperial's main R&D facility. Sublevel 6. He's been in cryo-stasis for 3 years, his neural patterns preserved for what they call Phase 2 of the project. Kai pulled up a schematic of a sleek, modern building. They're planning to wake him soon. Within the week if my intel is correct. And when they do, they'll activate whatever programming they've implanted. He'll become their masterpiece. A perfect, obedient asset with no memory of who he really is. No memory of you or your mother or anything that came before. Kai's eyes burned with desperate intensity. I can get you inside, Elena. Your mother's biometrics are still in the system. They never purged them because they thought she was dead. But I can't do this alone. Why me? If I'm supposed to be this expert memory technician, I don't remember any of it. I don't know how to. Because some skills live in the body, not the mind. Because your brother will recognize you even if he doesn't remember why. And because... Kai hesitated. Because I think you're the only one who can undo what they did to him. Elena stared at the schematic. At the image of her brother, a child frozen in time, waiting to be transformed into a weapon. At the face of the young woman she didn't remember being, who had done terrible things in the name of a program she now had to destroy. She thought about her mother, alive somewhere, stripped of her identity but still fighting. Still leaving breadcrumbs for Elena to follow. She thought about the life she'd built from the ashes of the 5 years they'd stolen from her. The channel. The investigations. The relentless pursuit of truth in a world that seemed determined to bury it. All of it had been leading here. When do we go? She asked. Kai smiled and for a moment he looked almost human. Tonight. But first, you need to understand something. He pulled up one more file, a corporate portrait of an elegant woman in her 60s, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that were far too familiar. This is Madame Yoon, CEO of K-Imperial, the architect of Project Lotus. And the reason your family has been running for 20 years. Elena studied the photograph. Something about the woman's face tugged at her memory. The shape of her eyes. The curve of her cheekbones. The particular way she held her chin, like she was daring the world to challenge her. I've seen her before, Elena said slowly. Not in person but... I know her somehow. You should. Kai's voice was grim. She's the one who designed you, Elena. Every skill, every instinct, every memory they implanted before your mother broke you free. You're not just a rogue asset to K-Imperial. Then what am I? Their most successful prototype. Their proof of concept. Kai turned off the screen. And according to Madame Yoon's files, you're also something else. What? Her genetic successor. Created from her DNA, engineered to surpass her in every way. Kai met her eyes. You're not just fighting to save your brother, Elena. You're fighting to destroy your own creator. Elena's reflection stared back at her from the darkened screen. The same eyes as the woman in the photograph. The same cheekbones. The same stubborn set to the jaw. She'd spent her whole life wondering why she felt like she didn't belong anywhere. Why her mother had loved her so fiercely but looked at her sometimes with an expression that seemed like grief. Why she was brilliant at reading people, at finding their weaknesses, at knowing exactly what to say to make them trust her. Now she knew. She wasn't born. She was made. And the woman who'd made her had stolen everything she'd ever loved. Elena stood up, her titanium knee clicking, her heart steady for the first time in hours. Show me everything, she said. Every file, every schematic, every scrap of information you have about Project Lotus. and then show me how to burn it to the ground. Kai nodded. There's one more thing you need to see first. He pulled up a video, recent surveillance footage from K-Imperial's facility. The timestamp showed yesterday's date. On screen, a boy sat in a sterile white room. He looked about 16, with dark hair and warm brown skin and eyes that held absolutely no expression at all. He was drawing something on a tablet, his movements precise and mechanical. June, Elena whispered. The boy looked up at the camera. And for just a moment, his expression shifted. Something flickered in those empty eyes. Recognition, maybe? Or hope. Then a door opened off-screen and a woman's voice said, "Good morning, Subject L1. Are you ready for today's session?" The boy smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Elena had ever seen, not because it was cruel but because it was perfect. Practiced. The smile of someone who had learned exactly what expressions were expected of them and nothing more. "Yes, Director Yoon," he said. "I'm always ready to serve." The video ended. Elena's hands were shaking again, but not with fear this time. "They took him," she said quietly. "They took my baby brother and they hollowed him out and filled him with whatever they wanted him to be." "Yes. And you want me to go in there and get him back? Can you?" Elena thought about the girl in the photograph. The ghost who could rewrite memories so seamlessly that the subjects never knew they'd been changed. The weapon K-Imperial had created to serve their agenda. She thought about her mother, who had risked everything to give Elena a chance at freedom. Who had burned down her own life to save the children she loved. She thought about the boy in the video, smiling his empty smile, waiting for someone to remind him who he really was. "I don't know," Elena said honestly. "I don't remember how. I don't remember anything about who I used to be. But I know who I am now. I'm a journalist who spent 5 years digging up the truth when everyone told her to let it go. I'm a survivor who rebuilt her life from nothing. And I'm a sister who just found out her brother is still alive." Elena turned to face Kai, her expression hard. "So yes, I'll go in there. I'll find June. And I'll tear apart everything K-Imperial has built, memory by memory, lie by lie, until there's nothing left but the truth." Kai extended his hand. "Then we have work to do." Elena shook it. Outside the rain had stopped. Seoul glittered in the darkness like a city made of broken promises and buried secrets. Somewhere in that maze of neon and glass, K-Imperial's towers scraped the sky, filled with the ghosts of everyone they'd erased. Elena was going to give those ghosts a voice. But first she was going to save her brother. If you've made it this far, you're not just a viewer anymore. You're a witness. And Elena's going to need witnesses for what comes next. Hit that like button if you want to see her take down K-Imperial. Leave a comment telling me, if you could erase one memory from your past, would you? Or is the pain part of what makes you who you are? And subscribe right now because next episode, Elena goes into the heart of the beast, and discovers that the truth is even darker than she imagined. The boy in the blue room is waiting. But is he a victim to be saved, or a trap waiting to spring? You don't want to miss what happens next. Elena pulled out her phone and started a new live stream. Her subscribers deserved to know what was coming. They deserved to know that everything they'd been told about K-Imperial, about her mother, about memory itself, it was all a lie. And lies, Elena had learned, were only powerful as long as they stayed hidden. "Hey everyone," she said into the camera, her voice steady now. "You saw what happened earlier tonight. You saw them try to silence me. But here's the thing about ghosts, you can't kill what's already dead." She smiled and it wasn't empty at all. It was fierce. Alive. Hungry for the truth. "My name is Elena Kim. My mother didn't die in that fire. My brother is still alive. And I'm going to find them both, even if I have to burn K-Imperial to the ground to do it." She paused, letting the words sink in. "They made me forget who I was. They stole 5 years of my life and filled them with static. But here's what they didn't count on. The ghost in my blood remembers even when I don't. And that ghost is very, very angry." Elena ended the stream and tucked the phone back in her pocket. Behind her, Kai was already pulling up schematics, running through security protocols, planning an infiltration that should have been impossible. But Elena had stopped believing in impossible the moment she saw her dead mother's face on that USB drive. Now she believed in ghosts. And she was about to become one.